morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. So, we're going to do both at the same time. Good morning, everybody. It's the B Cup, and it's February 21st. And I am feeling a little bit like we need to talk about the word manipulation. It's a good word. I just realized that I don't use that word enough because it happens a lot. Good morning, Crystal on YouTube. Nice to see you. So, as you know, I've been kind of like not doing the B Cup every single day lately because I have so much on my plate, but I really want to start to talk about how we can make the B Cup um, work every day and how I can get you guys to actually participate a little bit more. Not that you don't participate, you are great at participating, but how can we? Hi Riley, nice to see you. I want to have more of an interaction on some level. I'm trying to figure out how to do this. But that said, I love doing the B Cup. I love talking to, and I love getting deep down and dirty with conversation, talking about the things that make everyone feel uncomfortable, but everyone wants to say. Everyone wants to say it. Hi, Philip. But for some reason, nobody is willing to get out there and say it. So I'm willing to say it because I don't have any fear to say it. I have no fear again for anybody or anything. I know what and who I am. So, good morning, Phoenix. Nice to see you. And Dylan, nice to see you. And Patrick, and Tori, and Jennifer, and Drake. And okay, kids, and Ansley. Ansley. Is that how you pronounce it? Anyway, great to see you, kids. Ciao, Marco. Nice to see you from Italy. And Casey. So, really, what is this word and what is happening within the transgender community? And I'm going to talk about this because I don't understand why nobody else is talking about it. Or when they do, they feel, hi, Alex J. They feel very, very, Monsi and Tori. How do they, thanks. How do, and why do so many people feel like, in a sense, our transgender community is being manipulated? Tori, manipulated. That's the word. Manipulation is a very dangerous thing. I've been using co-opted in the term of what's happening to our transgender community. Why are people saying that being transgender is not binary? Why are people saying that if you get surgery, you're transphobic? What is happening? What is happening that people would say transgender is specifically that? You choose not to get you choose not to get surgery, you don't choose to get surgery, but transgender does have a very specific definition. It is not this definition that has become an umbrella term. That is dangerous. When something becomes an umbrella term, you have now basically washed out real, serious identity. And it comes back to identity politics constantly. We've been dealing with identity politics in the LGBT community forever. But that said, nobody ever took LGBT and made it a specific okay, so let's just say this. Let's use this example. Gay. I'm gay, right? So you're gay. Now all of a sudden gay isn't just men being attracted, let's say gay men. I'm talking about gay men. Gay men, I'm a gay man, and I'm attracted to other men. So that makes me a gay man. Now, what if they started to water down the identity of gay men and saying that gay men, don't necessarily just like men or are attracted to masculinity, they also are attracted to women. That doesn't make you gay anymore. That makes you bisexual. You understand what I'm saying? So how can you start to take a word transgender where it started as transsexual, and I still am very much about the word transsexual, but all of a sudden, it's cool, change it to transgender, but then all of a sudden you start manipulating the identity of what transgender is by adding all of these other identities that have nothing to do with being transgender. Zero. Why can't you just be gender nonconforming? Why can't you just be gender nonconforming? That's okay. Be gender nonconforming. That does not make you transgender. It's different than being transgender. But why now are we all of a sudden putting this gender nonconforming, this fluid? Give me some. Speak to me, kids. Speak to me. Give me some other identities that are now all underneath queer, gender nonconforming, fluid, queer, fluid something. I don't even know. There's so many days. Why does that now fall under the category of transgender? I want to know this because I'm very confused. Philip says, it's confusing as hell. It's honestly pissing me off. It's upsetting because they have manipulated the word transgender in order to fit their own idea of themselves. Does that make sense? Because Axe says you have to have surgery to be a woman, but in Maine you don't. You don't have to have any surgery if you don't want to. Zero. Lots of people don't have surgery. That doesn't mean anything. Alex J says everyone has their own beliefs, and if I don't agree with them, I simply move on. I can't understand why we're still harping on this, my dear friend. Harping, Alex? Harping? I'll tell you why harping, Alex. Because it's actually called manipulation, Alex J. And that's why. And if you don't want to listen to it, you're more than welcome to leave. But that said, I told you, I'm going to talk about the things that are actually upsetting me because they're upsetting other people in the community. And other people in the community don't feel powerful enough to speak out about it. Yet at the same time, they are actually suffering from it. You are manipulating people's idea of what it means to be transgender. You have drug it out to a situation that is now becoming dangerous. Because what's happening, Alex J, is this. People are saying that you are transphobic if you have surgery. That's why, Alex J, I'm speaking about it. And I'm harping on it because it's dangerous behavior when you start to tell transgender people that having surgery is transphobic. That, my friend, is wrong, and that is not true, and that's a manipulation of the identity of transgender people. Tori says, we had a bad experience at the doctor the other day because even the doctors are confused. Thank you. People have confused. Don't be sorry, Alex. Why are you sorry? It's what you feel. It's what you feel. Don't be sorry to me. Don't be sorry to me at all. Speak your mind, but understand that I will also come back and speak my mind to you. So say what you want to say. I'm not shutting you down. I'm telling you why I'm harping on the word transgender being manipulated. Hi, Diana. Nice to see you. Tori says, my child, I hope, will never want surgery. And that's the choice of the person. But let's just talk about what does it mean to be transgender now? Why has the word transgender become an umbrella term? Why? Jennifer Shaw says, you don't have to have GRS to be a man or a woman. Some trans people don't want surgery and others do. My daughter wanted to have the surgery and her mind and body matched up. I'm clearly okay with that. I don't have surgery. I have a vagina and I walk the world that way. Here is my question to you kids after I have a sip of my coffee. Allison says, hi, Buck. Decided I need some positivity this morning as I'm having a massive fibromyalgia flare-up. You need to get some CBD, Allison. Do you have some? I'm so sorry. I know that's fucking painful. I'm trying not to be too in your face this morning because we're talking about manipulation of the word transgender. The word transgender has been manipulated. It has been co-opted into other identities. So now that's why it's an umbrella term. That makes it confusing for so many people. For so many people who are identifying and have identified as transgender for a long time. It is not an umbrella term. Transgender is a very specific term, as well as transsexual. It is why I call myself a transsexual, because transsexual specifically talks about exactly what I am. Transgender now has become such something else that many people don't even know their identity anymore. People don't even know their identity because it's been watered down and manipulated by the gender non-conforming people. I'm saying it to you right now. It's the gender non-conforming people who are very angry, very attacking, very not about having a conversation, very manipulating, very bullying, and they're bullying people into believing that their identity isn't real. And that, my friend, is dangerous behavior and why I speak about it constantly. Because there are many people who keep coming to me and saying, what does transgender mean? And so I have to explain to them transgender has become an umbrella term for all these other identities. It is not my identity. I can speak about transsexual, which is my identity. Allison says, no CBD, I don't want to smoke anything. It is in a different form and can't work, so not able to afford anything. But Allison, I'll talk to you about tincture. CBD tincture is good, okay? So I would love to hear some feedback from you kids out there. Hi, Diana. Feedback. Give me some feedback about what you feel. Do you feel? I'm not mad at anybody. You guys know that. Alex J. I'm not mad at anybody. I don't get mad at anybody. I'm opinionated and I'm passionate about what I say and I'm passionate about what I speak about. So I really want to talk to you kids about manipulation of the word transgender and the community. And how has it become something else that is now actually confusing everybody? Everybody. Take another word and take another identification and use it as yours. I don't understand why gender nonconforming people aren't just gender nonconforming people. Why aren't they just that? Why are they transgender gender nonconforming people? Right? Does that make sense to you? Alice J says, I'm very much agreeing with what is said and only find it sad that we constantly have to. Listen, if you don't discuss things, Alex J, they get blown away. And then the people who are manipulating get stronger and more powerful. And when they become stronger and more powerful using manipulation, they become the leaders of the community and they become the gatekeepers, which they have become. When we have gatekeepers, we don't have the freedom to be who we want to be. We become locked in and manipulated to be that identity. And that is not okay with me. I did not work this hard to be the person I am so that I can become manipulated into being told that I have to be put under an umbrella term and now anybody who gets surgery is transphobic. What? That is not okay with me. I refuse to be okay with that. Okay, love you too, Tori. Have a beautiful day. Lindsay says you don't have to smoke to get CBD. You can use tincture. Yes, I sell balm and tincture too. Thank you, Lindsay. Elliot says gender nonconforming and non-binary are two. Exactly. They're two different things. So that's my point, Elliot. Why are they now underneath transgender? Why has the transgender become the umbrella term for gender nonconforming, non-binary? How are those two different things anyway? How is gender nonconforming and non-binary two different things? They're both non-binary. So how are they two different things? It's a question for real. Denise says, yes, you're correct. I've had this situation that speaking to a young transgender female, I was told that I was not saying her in her correct identity. It's like walking on eggshells because I don't want to be disrespectful. But you're going to be disrespectful because there's no clear term. Jennifer says, to me, transgender is a person who feels they were born in the wrong body, is assigned male at birth, but are a woman, and assigned female at birth, but are a man. I hope that's exactly transsexual and transgender. Exactly. Non-binary is trans, but gender non-conforming isn't trans, right? So a trans person can most definitely not choose binary, 100%. They can not choose binary, right? That's totally fine. But why is gender non-conforming and then now being told that if you have surgery you're transphobic? That's not trans. That's not transgender. That is not, you cannot put all of these other identities under an umbrella term and then expect them all to relate to each other because they don't relate to each other. I'm transsexual. I am not transgender. They are two totally different things. Why is transsexual being put underneath the umbrella of transgender? Why? To make it easier for you? No, I'm not going to make my identity easy for you. Why don't you make your identity easy for me? That's just really rude and disrespectful to talk to other people in our community and tell them how to identify. Alex J says, but are we not doing the same thing as feeding the trolls, as you said before? No, we're not. I'm not feeding any troll. I'm having a conversation to the group of people that choose to have a conversation. Feeding the troll is talking to the troll. Elliot says, some of us transition and some of us don't. We have been around just as long. Just as long as what? What is transition to you, Elliot? What is transition to you? Is transition medical? Is transition not medical? Is transition psychological? What is transition to you? That's my point, and that's my question. I'm not saying because I'm old, I know everything. I don't know shit. I only know what I am, and what I am is a transsexual. And what people in the transgender community are telling me is that I'm not a transsexual, that I'm a transgender, and that is not true. So my point is, there's many people who are older than me, many people who have different identities than me. That's not my point. My point is, how can you take identities, throw them under an umbrella term, and expect everybody to be okay with that? It's not the reality of it. I'm getting a headache. It's so confusing. There are so many, it gets extremely confusing. The problem with doing that and making an umbrella term is now people's identities have been washed out. People who clearly have identities have been washed out. And they have been told that it doesn't matter if you're gender nonconforming, non-binary, transgender fluid, whatever, you are transgender. It's not true. And now you're telling people how to identify, and you're telling people that they can only identify that way. Elliot says these people need to shut up and not police. Well, that's a great response, Elliot, but that's just not going to happen. That they're not going to shut up. They're actually very bullying, and they're actually very much tearing our community apart. So it's not confusing if you make it. Veronica says is not confusing is if you make it confused. It can be extremely confusing, but that said, I am all for every single identity you want to identify with. You know that about me. I want you to identify. However, what I don't like seeing is this manipulation of an identity and the identity politics. And there's people who are saying, this is exactly what it is. And the manipulation of the terms and the manipulation of the ideas. I believe in growth, and I believe in growth of a community. But what I don't believe in is manipulating the term. And in order for other people to feel comfortable about their own identity, they have to point fingers at other people in the community who are not following the same guidelines. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Angel says, guess by those terms I'm transphobic, but I'll wear that proudly because I do not regret my surgery. And I'm taking, that's my point, Angel. They're trying to say if you get surgery, you're transphobic. It is really destructive and sad behavior. Veronica says, I'm transgender and I don't need to explain anything to anyone. And if I'm happy with that word, then that, exactly. You don't need to explain anything to anyone. My point is this. I'm talking about the manipulation of the word transgender. And now we have all of these identities that have now been put under an umbrella term, which I think is actually dangerous behavior. Because now we have no clear definition of what it means to be transgender. And my problem with that is when somebody goes into a situation where they say, I'm transgender, now that can just mean like 50 things. Does that make sense to you? It can mean like 50 things. So how is a mental health care professional going to help you? How is a doctor going to help you? How is anyone going to help you when you say, I'm transgender? But what does that really mean now? If I go to the doctor and I say, I'm a transsexual man, they know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm a transsexual man. I was born a woman. Yes, I was. I was born a woman, female, at birth. And I transitioned to become a man through surgery and hormones. I'm a transsexual. So if I just say that, so my point is, how do we define things? How do we define things? Petra says, this issue has been going on for several years now, and I'm one of the few that uses this terminology. And I told you years ago, Petra, if you remember, I said, you watch how this is going to explode in our faces and be a very negative thing. And that's what's happening. I'm watching it happen from afar. I'm watching the anger. I'm watching the insanity. I'm watching people say so much mean stuff to each other in our own community. And it's heartbreaking for me as an old guy to be like, why are you guys talking shit to each other? We're a family. It doesn't make sense to me because you don't like somebody else's identity. Angel said, this is why the community is falling apart. Veronica says, so what do you call people that say they are transgender, that went through the surgery or not, and they're into women. Well, I personally would say that's a transgender lesbian, right? So are you talking about a woman, a man who becomes a woman, right? A transgender woman who identifies as transgender, but then also likes uh, to date women. That I would call them a lesbian, a transgender woman lesbian, right? That's what I would think, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. So there. That's how we don't. I don't even know anymore about identities. I only know about my own identity. But what I do know is that I grew up as a transsexual man, which then evolved into the word transgender, which I never attached myself to. I always attached to myself as transsexual. Jennifer says, Veronica, for my daughter, she had surgery but prefers men. So she is a straight trans woman. Exactly. Exactly. And that's pretty simple and that's pretty forward. So why now are all these other identities? And I'm actually going to make a list. So Nick Snyder says, so confusing. It's so confusing. But it's, I mean, we got to laugh at it, but at the same time, we really got to talk about this. So Elliot says, we just have more languages for it now. Yes, and language is important, Elliot, but language is different than identity. It's different than identity. And I think language is important, and I think evolving is important. But I don't think watering down a definition of an identity is positive. Imagine if you did that with lesbian. Imagine if you did that with gay. Imagine if you did that with bisexual. Imagine if you did that with other identities. Imagine if you did that with gender nonconforming and then you started adding other things. That's okay, but that's gender nonconforming. It is not transgender. That's just my opinion. It's just my opinion. It is not fact. And that, as far as I'm concerned, the only fact there is what a transsexual person is. That to me is the only fact now. I don't even really even know what transgender is. I have no idea. It is not my community, it is not who I am. And it's feeling that way for a lot of other people. And it feels as if it's been manipulated and not spoken about to everybody. It hasn't been sort of like a whole community effort into this. It has been bullied. People have been bullied into saying, that's my identity, but I'm not really sure if it is my identity. Constantly. Do you know that constantly young trans guys write to me and they say, Trampa, I'm confused about my identity. Am I really transgender? You know, that's because it's been watered down into an umbrella term that people don't even know what they are anymore. And that can be very dangerous. Angel says this is just going to feed into your younger generation suicide rates rising, that they have no support and are constantly told who they are is wrong and how they are pestering themselves is wrong. We're falling not only ourselves but the younger generations looking to us for support and help. And why I speak completely to the younger generation, Angel, because I exactly feel that. If I didn't have the idea that the kids are getting hurt from this, I wouldn't even discuss it. Because we're adults and we can deal with it. I'm concerned about the younger generation. Hi, Diana. Oh, you're new. It's so great to see you. Thank you for showing up. We appreciate that. We're talking about the manipulation of the word transgender and how it's become an umbrella term, though a lot of us feel very confused about why it's become an umbrella term and why do people such as the example of gender nonconforming, why are they now put underneath, why are all these identities put underneath umbrella term, including transsexual? Because that doesn't make sense to me. That's too watered down. If I say I'm transgender, then there's a subcategory of transgender. Then I have to subcategorize myself. Then there's a subcategory of transgender now. So I have to subcategorize myself and subcategorize myself because now when you say you're transgender, it's not just black and white like it used to be. Well, I am. Transsexual is pretty black and white and pretty straightforward, which I personally think is very important when it comes to your identity and it comes to understanding who and what you are. And that, my friend, is why things can get a little bit scary for some younger generation of people. So Elliot is telling us that gender nonconforming is not under transgender. Gender non-binary is. But Elliot, that's not what I heard, Elliot. My friend Elliot, and I appreciate your conversation. Thank you for coming on here and bringing a younger voice to it and a voice that knows a little bit more about it. So gender nonconforming people have told me they're transgender. They call themselves transgender nonconforming. Seriously, I'm not kidding, Elliot. That's why the conversation needs to be had, because you think one thing, but they're saying another. So, Regilio, that's why to explain to a cisgender person is also confusing. I do it all over the world, and why I use transsexual when I talk about my story. Veronica says, I do not understand when transgender like girls. I used to think they were confused, but then I said, why should I care what they like? Or, exactly. It doesn't matter. People's sexuality does change through transition. I did a whole documentary about it called Sexing the Trans Men, because there was a lot of trans men who started to be attracted sexually to men. To cisgender men and even trans men. And so in a way, a lot of us were like, wow, our sexuality is changing along with our gender, along with our gender, and like, what's happening? So that's a real thing that's happening. Andy, nice to see you, my friend. So we're talking about manipulation of the word transgender. And why has it been manipulated, and why are there now a million different terminologies and a million different identities under transgender? Could you say the same with gay? Well, I guess that's a sexuality, so it's a little bit different. Dylan says, okay, then what's the difference between gender nonconforming? Exactly, Dylan. Exactly my question, Dylan. Somebody answer that question. What is the difference between gender nonconforming and non-binary? They're the same thing. When you're non-binary, you're gender non-conforming. You just flipped the words around. You just flipped the word. Basically, it's the same thing, people. But you're confusing it. You keep confusing it. You keep wanting to add more identities to make yourself feel what? Special. Special. I think so. People need to feel special, and people need to feel their identity is special. So they keep creating new identities, which is awesome. Create the identity. Create the identity. But don't create the identities in order to come and co-opt another identity. So Elliot says, no, it's not. Okay, many of us think it is, Elliot. So anyone trans or not can be gender nonconforming. Anyone trans or not can be gender nonconforming. No binary is real. It's not new. Binary is real, by the way. I think that I'm not reading that right. Gender nonconforming and non-binary are the same thing. Ask anyone. They're the same thing. Gender nonconforming and non-binary are the exact same thing. Who thinks they're different? I want to know, and I need a real explanation as to why they are different, because they aren't different. You're just changing the words around. That's all. And actually, what's not new? Gender is real. Gender is real. You're talking to a man who is binary. I am a binary man, and gender is real. Gender is not socially constructed. Your actions in gender are socially constructed. Gender is not socially constructed. Gender is a real thing. But how we act in gender is how we are socially constructed to act as men or women. But gender is real. And this idea that gender doesn't exist is bullshit, and it's wrong. I can show you scientific facts. What I can also show you is facts as to why people are socially constructed to act a certain way. Elliot says, I didn't say it wasn't. Okay, no, it's cool. Elliot, dude, we're all good, my friend. I love your conversation, and I love you really being here and giving us a whole different perspective of these things. Your voice is very important. I'm just a very passionate kind of guy, and I come off a little rough sometimes. So in no way am I challenging you angrily. I'm just challenging you as a conversation. So it's really important that I think people understand that, because I know how I come off a little bit like, rah, it's the coffee. But I love you and I love your conversation. Don't ever feel that I'm coming down on you. I'm not. I'm just having a real conversation. So Veronica says, is the same they just want to look at it different. That's how their brain wants to see it, and they actually know what it is. It's true. Pete Bailey says, Wikipedia says, individuals may express gender non-norm heteronormativity by not conforming into the binary gender categories of man or woman. Gender queer is often used to self-identify by people who challenge binary social constructions of gender. However, not all genderqueer persons identify as androgynous. But why did they even throw the word androgynous in there? That's the most confusing definition of any identity I've ever seen. Did you guys read that, all of you? Did you guys read that? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. It is so confusing. I am so happy that I know my identity right now. I would be fucking freaked out if I was dealing with having to deal with my identity right now, and if I read that Wikipedia, I would lose my fucking mind. And no wonder kids are so goddamn depressed right now. No wonder kids are so out of their fucking minds. They don't know their identities because there's no real clear definition of who you are. I can clearly define my identity to you right now. 110%. I can clear up my identity to you. There is no thought process of me thinking or double thinking about who I am ever. I know exactly who I am. I've known exactly who I am since I was a little fucking kid, and I've always wanted to be this person, and doesn't make me right or wrong, but I'm telling you, that is why I'm a transsexual. I always knew I was a man, and I always wanted to be a man, and now I'm a man, and that's it. It's pretty fucking simple. That said, now there's so many different weird. Okay, that is a weird definition of what gender nonconforming is. Why can't it just be straightforward? Lindsay says, like my butch girlfriend is gender nonconforming, but she's cis. See? But she's not transgender. So why is gender nonconforming under the terminology of transgender? Why can't it just be gender nonconforming? Then we have to separate whether or not you're trans or cis. Why? Elliot says that's not why they are depressed. It is because people are not accepting them. It's all, Elliot, I deal with a lot of kids. I don't know how many kids you deal with, but I deal with a lot of young kids. 17, 16, even 15. And a lot of them are telling me, Trampa, I'm very confused about my identity. I don't understand what transgender is. Am I transgender? So are you telling me, Elliot, that you don't think that that's a confusing statement from a youngster? That is extremely confusing. These kids don't know because the definition of transgender is now watered down to be a billion different identities. Instead of saying transgender can be this, transsexual can be this, gender nonconforming can be this can be this. Well, I'm going to tell you something. My whole time with these kids and my experience with these kids is totally different than yours. Totally different than yours. And so that's why I have this conversation. And I'm glad that you're not having these kids come to you confused about their identity. I'm very happy, but I am. And I'm getting more and more of these kids on a daily basis writing to me and telling me how confused they are. And they don't know what to do about it because they don't understand the explanation of transgender, and maybe they're really transsexual. So that's my point, is we need to really have definitions in order because they do help people understand themselves. If definitions are just wishy-washy, watered down all over the place, it really doesn't do good for young kids who are really in a place trying to find their identities. And it really helps them find their identities and helps them not feel depressed and helps them feel as if people aren't accepting them. I walk the world as a transsexual man, and I've been so accepted by the whole world. Because, why? I know my identity. I'm very passionate about my identity, and I'm very passionate about teaching people about my identity. And because of that, I don't get pushback, and I'm not confused. And I never have been confused about my identity, ever, ever. Even when I was a kid, I knew I was a man. Veronica says, I used to not go out when I was growing up because people not understand us now. As I got older, I started not to care because I knew what I was and did not care if anyone accepted me or not. If people can't accept me, 100%. Elliot says, of course they are, but not for that reason. I disagree with you, Elliot. That's your opinion. And my opinion is totally different because my experience is different than yours. We have totally different experiences. My experiences is, yes, the children are suffering because, yes, They don't know what the terminology transgender means. And yes, they are suffering because they're having a hard time distinguishing exactly where they fit in. And for children, it's about fitting in. And if you don't know that, that's a real thing. Children need to fit in order to feel like a part of. And when they don't feel a part of, it actually starts to create depression. It creates an idea that they aren't good enough. It creates an idea that they'll never be. It creates an idea that they want to kill themselves. And that, my friend, is my opinion and my experience with the youngsters. I get it a lot. So that's why I want to talk about it. And I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm saying it's my experience. Again, we can only ever talk about our own experiences. We can't say this is right or wrong. I'm questioning the umbrella term of transgender. And I'm questioning why it has become so watered down. And I'm questioning why we think that is actually a positive thing when it is not a positive thing. It has watered down people's own expression of their own identity. And it's become this one thing where it's actually made it difficult for doctors to even diagnose or even understand where you at. What is going on? So Alex J says, yes, what Sean just said. Veronica said there was a parent that give his transgender boy away because they said they don't like gays. That was in the news. Oh, where was that, Veronica? Elliot says, yes, not feeling part of the community because other trans people are telling us non-binary is not real. Exactly, Elliot. Exactly my point. That is not okay. You are part of the community. You are part of the community, whether or not they say you are or not. It doesn't matter. But what is the community? Where has our community gone? And why are people so concerned with other people being gender nonconforming, non-binary? I don't care. I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome that you can find your space and you can say you're gender nonconforming. But what I don't think is awesome is making an umbrella term where we all fit underneath it. It is dangerous behavior. It is very, very fascist behavior to all of a sudden lock everybody into one idea, one thought process, one way to be, and one identity. Do you understand what I'm saying, Elliot? That's my point. My point is we are making it as if you have to be this to be transgender, which is all of this. Really? Why can't you just say I'm gender nonconforming? You're right? Just like I say I'm transsexual. But instead, you have to say, I'm transgender, but underneath that umbrella term of transgender, I'm actually non-conforming, gender binary, It confuses not only you, whether you believe it or not, but it also confuses the rest of the world to understand how and why this is happening. And I'm going to tell you, this old man knows how to play the game. This old man learned how to play the game in order to use the world to walk through it and to make change. And sometimes you have to do that in order to make change. And then little by little, change gets made. But you can't just walk into a room, bash the door down, come in and say, we are who we are, whether you believe it or not. Fuck off if you don't like it. Nobody's going to believe you, and nobody gives a fuck when you come in with an attitude like that. But when you come in with an attitude like, hello, we would really love to teach you today about who we are and what we are. And some of us are this, some of us are that. We understand that you might not agree or you might not get it, but that's how you make people understand who we are, not smashing the door down and being angry if someone actually misgenders you or the world doesn't understand. The world does not understand us. How many times do I have to say that? They don't understand us. And the only way to teach the world is to teach them through love, acceptance, compassion, empathy, and to understand when somebody turns around and calls you a fucking name, they're doing it because they don't like themselves and they also don't understand us. So it's listen to me, I'm going to say it again, whether you believe me or not. It's our responsibility to teach the world about us with compassion and empathy, not with anger, not with hate, and not with pushing them out. Because guess what? We will never succeed, and you will always be angry, and you will never move forward in the world. I do it every day. I do it every day. I move forward in the world because I engage with people through happiness and compassion. I can give you a whole example of the gym. When I'm in the gym talking to guys about my fucking vagina, I do it all the time. And I talk to them nicely about it. And by the time I'm done, they're my buddy and we're friends because I let them talk to me about, why do you have a vagina? That's so weird. They say that to me all the time. Yeah, it's weird to you, my friend, but it's not weird to me. It's not weird to me. And so, with that conversation, we have now created a dialogue because I didn't get insulted by the fact that he didn't know that a man can have a vagina. Of course, he didn't know. He's never been exposed to that. So, am I supposed to get angry and go, fuck you, I have a vagina, get over it? What do you think that's going to do? That's going to shut down the conversation. That's going to make nothing move forward. And then we're going to hate each other every time we go into the gym. Instead, it's the exact thing that I think we need to do with our community. Slow down, people. Find out who you are. When you find out who you are, you find out that actually the world will accept you because you've accepted yourself. It's the same thing with sex. If you don't masturbate and you don't know your own body and you aren't sexually active with your own body, you will never have good sex and you will constantly be looking or feeling as if sex is you're not accomplishing anything for you. It's the same thing that goes with your identity. Be you. Don't be other people. And don't worry what other people are doing. And don't worry whether or not that person is gender nonconforming or whatever. Who cares? Who cares? But that is what's happening, my friends, within the transgender community. Everyone is fighting over who is who, what is transgender, what is this. Who cares? Why are we making such a big deal out of it? It is so destructive, kids. It is so destructive. So, I gotta go. Here we go. 1 second. I missed out on my YouTube people. Hope says non-binary usually implies that individuals don't feel disconnected to either gender. Gender non-conforming, I think, may have to do with presentation. So, but that still doesn't make sense. They need to reword it, I think, Hope. My roommate is gender fluid, gender queer, and they go by she, they. They don't conform to binary-based presentation. So one is about presentation, and the other one is about how you feel. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I still am a little bit confused. As usual, Buck, you are passionate about the experiences and knowledge you have. Whether I agree with you or not, yes, we don't have to agree, Hope. Thank you. Thank you. I don't want you to agree with me. All I want you to do is have conversation. We don't have to agree, and that's totally okay. And it's the way we move forward. You explain to me, I explain to you, we meet in the middle, and we move forward. Right? Isn't that true, Elliot? Jennifer, Elliot says, I only worry when I have to push to get some rights for myself and my son. Otherwise, haters are just sad people. Veronica says, we need to teach them who we are and we're out there. Let's teach them. Yes, we just have to teach. Petra says, judging an ally only serves to push allies away, which we do a lot. Okay, kids, I love you guys a lot. You have beautiful conversation with me. I enjoy it every morning. I still have a whole half a cup of coffee. And Elliot, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate your voice here. We really appreciate you giving us feedback and really letting us have a conversation where we don't understand. And we want to learn to understand this. But I also want you to understand that I'm very opinionated. I am 100% opinionated. I have my own opinions about things. That said, my opinion can be changed. I am also very open-minded. And I'm also able to change my thought process if you explain it to me. I didn't used to understand what gender nonconforming was. And I was like, what? That's weird. But then I realized, no, it isn't weird. It's totally normal. Some people don't want to be man or woman. That's totally normal. And so then I realized it's just the wording I got confused with. And so if I'm getting confused, my friends, people in the outside world are getting more confused than me. So that's my point. Stop confusing it. How do we make it simplified? Because also when you simplify something, it also makes it simple for people who feel that way to understand it more and to take it on. But when you start to have layers and layers and layers and layers and layers, you're confused. There's just no way that you're able to walk the world with knowing who you are, because it shouldn't be that complicated. It just shouldn't be that complicated. So my friends, I love you very much. I'm going to let my YouTube kids go. Thank you for joining us again today. And I'll see you for sure tomorrow. I'll be on. Okay? Have a beautiful day.